Welcome to Popes and Pylons. Let's have a look at Europa Universalis IV, the newest expansion, Emperor, and the accompanying free patch 1.30. And if you haven't seen one of these videos before, there's not going to be any real gameplay in it, but we're going to go through the patch notes, which are huge this time. I'm not going to read all of it, that's just not going to be possible. And then check out those changes right there in the game. I did get preview access from Paradox, thank you Paradox, so we can check this out and have this video live before you guys even get to play the expansion. Unless you also have preview access, I guess. Let's jump right in. I'm going to switch over here to our patch notes. Patch 1.300 patch notes, just there, and just gonna go through it, and whenever I see something interesting, I'm gonna jump into the game and have a quick look at how that might work for us and what it does. And let's just start with the beginning here. There's been a bunch of rework done to Catholicism. The Catholic religion has been in the game for quite a while, I mean since the start, and it has felt a bit lackluster as a religion compared to other newer ones. So it has gotten a bit of an overhaul, and let's have a look at how that works out. I'm just going to jump back into the game. I've already set up here as Mr. Popeman. We're going to cheat and jump around a lot while we're doing these looks. So what can we see? Right in the papacy interface, it does look similar to what we had before. You still have cardinals appointed by countries or in countries, and countries having influence that give them a chance of becoming the papal controller. You can still, let's quickly become, I guess, Castile, because why not? Tag Cas. And if we look at the papal interface without being the Pope, we get our usual buttons. We can spend papal influence to do stuff like gain stability, and I don't think there have been any changes here. At least they look very similar to what they had before. We can still spend papal influence to gain influence towards becoming the papal controller. Still can see reform desire here. What's new? I don't know if you could actually see that in the screen before, but it has been a thing before. What's new here are these curia coffers. That's essentially money that the Catholic religion has. It's not really money that the papal state has. It's money that the Catholics have that can be used for a variety of actions. You can see here money comes in from Catholic countries depending on the spread of clergy in the land. We're going to talk about that later on. The whole estate system's also got a big rework. And so there's monthly money coming in, but also I could, as Mr. Castile here, spend a whole bunch of money to buy indulgence for my sins. Some of that will go into the curia coffers, and I gain papal influence for it. I don't know if this actually the rest ends up in the Pope's coffers. Let's find out. So if I become Pap again, we have 189 ducats. Cas. Spend the money. We did not gain the money. I can pass a day or two here, but I don't think that's gonna matter. No. Okay, so some of the money ends up in the curia coffers, the rest is just gone. So that's what we can do as just a normal Catholic country. But as the Pope, or as the papal controller, not necessarily the Pope, we have different options. We cannot put money in here. Well, we can, but not to buy indulgence for our sins, but to call an ecumenical council. Again, part of that money goes to the curia, and I just gain influence towards becoming the papal controller, so it's kind of similar. We can also spend money to appoint a loyalist as cardinal, so we get our own cardinals. Again, this is for the papal controller. It gives us corruption and makes us more likely to become the next papal controller. Costs a bunch of money, and we do get a cardinal. No, although I don't think they do matter much, except for the whole becoming papal controller thing. But what we can also do as the controller, I think once every lifetime of a pope, we can have a golden bull. And nothing to do with the cow. It is sort of an edict. We spent a whole bunch of money from the curia coffers here, 200 ducats, and we can make other curia actions cheaper. We can gain absolutism, drill, reduce drill loss, reduce unrest. We can have less aggressive expansion impact, and continue doing crusades even after the Age of Crusades has ended. make cheaper to embrace institutions, and have cardinals spread institutions. I don't quite know how this works. So I assume places that have cardinals in them will have institution spread, but I don't know if you just get it or if the institution has to be in a Catholic state before or something. I don't know. We're going to see how that works out when we're playing. There's going to be a lot of Let's Play of this for sure coming up. There should be one video coming up today and then every day, at least one. I'm considering doing 2 campaigns at the same time right now. Imperial authority growth, so something for the also reworked Holy Roman Empire. And development cost, increased tolerance of heathens. Heathens. So that's, in a nutshell, I think what they changed to the papacy. Although, a few other changes, except for a bunch of events, which we're not going to go through. And we might see other changes while going through the patch log. But one additional thing is that becoming the Kingdom of God, here, declare Kingdom of God as the Pope, it no longer disables the Curia mechanics. So you can still play with the Catholic mechanics, even though you click this button. It was always a bit of a trap to click this button before, because it didn't give you much, and it took away all the Catholic stuff. So that's no longer the case. Let's jump back into our patch notes here. So, can appoint cardinals. Oh yes, I could go, if we go back to the game, could as the Pope now go and say, hey Castile, you've been so nice, have a cardinal. I spent money, or I spent that money from the Curia treasury, because I'm the papal controller. I could use my own money or not. Get opinion boost here, and our influence becoming towards, so we are more likely to become the next papal controller. I'm not quite sure why, because we're giving them a cardinal, but hey, clearly how that works. And there are other actions. Right now it would just be call for crusade and excommunicate, but I assume there are other actions possible. Back to our patch notes here. Imperial Instance System for the HRE, which has the Holy Roman Empire more live and dynamic. We can have a quick look at the Empire screen as well. We can see a bunch of things here that haven't really changed. We see our electors, we see the Emperor, we see Imperial authority and all that, dominant faith, a bit different look, but still. We do also see our usual government reforms, although some of these I don't think are exactly the same as they used to be before. But what's totally new is 2 things. One is incidents. We can't see any right now, no current ones, no past ones, but at historic points in time, for example Shadow Kingdom, such incidents will happen, and they require a response from the Emperor and also the electors, and at least in the case of the Shadow Kingdom, which is one I've seen, also every single prince in the Empire has to essentially vote on a direction to go, and things happen. And there's a number of these inside the game, and I'm sure there's going to be more at some point in the future when they come back to the HRE region. The other thing that's changed is, and we can see that at least right now here in the screen, is decentralization and centralization. So as soon as you get, I think, to perpetual diet, you get to choose whether you go down to the decentralization part or the centralization part. Centralization is essentially the old one that ends in good old grayskin, where you take your vassal swarm and turn it all into one giant Holy Roman Empire, one big country. Decentralization is the one where you get to keep your vassal swarm now. Can we see here more free cities, more manpower for electors, emperor, and more movement speed in empire provinces for friendlies. More electors, maybe that's why there's an 8th elector down here. Imperial authority growth plus 60%. More tax for electors, less development costs in provinces, and in the end, Reichskrieg. Allows the emperor to create a casus belli in any nation not currently in the empire. Emperor and electors will be able to raise war taxes for free while at war with enemies of the Holy Roman Empire. So war taxes, yeah, you know. But free casus belli on anybody not in the empire, that's a CB. I'll take it. I will take it. Obviously, that's very, very late game. So that's the new Empire screen in a nutshell. Back to our patch notes here. Hussite Church. Now, I don't think we can see this yet, but the Hussite Church is a new religion in Bohemia with its own events. Apparently, we are already Hussite. Hussite religion gives us bonus infantry combat ability and missionary strength versus heretics. Nice. That's powerful. And we're already... Yeah. Okay, so as the Bohemian Start, you actually have a case where you have a bunch of Hussite provinces, but you also have a bunch of Catholic provinces in your country that really need fixing. Now it's January 1452 because I had the game run a bit, so maybe this has already spawned and we're not at the start date there. Either way, that is the Hussite religion. I assume it has its own custom mechanics, although I don't see them right here. But maybe we'll see them in our patch notes. So let's go back there. Hussite church aspects. Bunch of new mission trees here. There's gonna be more, but these are the ones you get only if you have Emperor. So all these changes we're seeing right now are only for Emperor. There's gonna be a whole ton of changes for everyone at the bottom. For now, just looking at people who have the expansion. Extra mission tree for France, for Brandenburg and Prussia, Germany and the HRE. Interesting. So I assume once you become Grayskin, you get a new mission tree? Maybe. Mission tree for Provence, Switzerland, Crusader States, Knights, Epirus, Cyprus, Athens and Jerusalem, Naples and the two Sicilies, Bohemians and the Pope. I do like these mission trees, and they have been improving mission trees a lot compared to when they were first improved. Now, if we look at the Bohemian one here, most of this stuff is... I should actually show you the game. There you go. Is regular generic stuff, but over here we have the Hussite Resurgence, which has already happened. Yes, at least 1500. It is 1452. Oh, so the event return of the Hussites already happened. It's probably something we missed out there. Missionary maintenance, and then we go integrate Silesia, gives us claims, more claims, bunch of development for having a cathedral and a university in our capital, which is not super early game, obviously. And then if we own a bunch more stuff, we gain admin power and prestige and legitimacy. Okay, so this is not crazy nuts, but it is a mission tree. What's this down here? Oh, we can view the mission trees of our subjects. No, they probably have just generic stuff. Interesting. Didn't know this was a thing. That must have been added as well. Well, let's become France for a moment. Why not? Have a quick look at their mission tree. And also, France, what the heck? There's been a bunch of map remodeling, and one thing is that France no longer is this giant blue blob. It is, I mean, it still owns all this land, but there's a lot of stuff that is in subjects now. And that's interesting, I would say, at the very least. Have a look at our mission tree. This is not as generic. There's still a bit of generic stuff in here, but clearly conquest tree over on the right. Gascony, Provence, Burgundy, annex Savoy, Genoa, Milan. So get into Italy, get into, well, Burgundy and the HRE border. And then Brittany, Picardy, cover Calais, so bulk with the English. Bulk? Sure. And even here, a naval tree based on colonization. That's a pretty expansive mission tree, considering this is not Hearts of Iron. Let's have a quick look at the Papal Man. High income, this is a normal one. This is also a normal one. So most of this is basic. It did say, didn't it say Papal State? Let's have a quick look. France, Holy Roman Empire, Provence, Switzerland, Crusader States, Naples, Bohemian, Papal State. Okay, added new missions. So they didn't say new mission tree. So I assume combating the heresy might be new, and then Urbino and Ferrara maybe. Okay, this is more of a smaller change. Who else is interesting? Brandenburg, Prussia. Now, I don't know if I can see Prussia yet. Probably not. But we could quickly become Brandenburg. And have a quick look at your mission tree. Reclaim Neumark, Pomeranian succession, Prussian expansion, conquer Silesia, conquest of Greater Poland, Duchy of Cleves. So get into Westphalia there. And then over here, that's mostly generic stuff. I don't remember Charlemagne's legacy. Defend the Empire. That might be new. I don't quite remember. So I could grab a bunch of land here and quickly form Prussia. Could I? Let me see. Form Kingdom of Prussia. Admin Tech 10. You know what? We're not going to do it. We're going to do that in some playthrough or another and have a look at that. Anything else? Switzerland, Crusader States, Naples. I'm not going to give a too deep a look into each and every one of those trees. Let's have a quick look at the Knights one, because there's an achievement related to the Knights that I may or may not do. So let's become a Knight and have a quick look at these people's mission tree. That looks extremely normal to me. Mission tree for the Crusader States, Knights, Emperors. I'm not sure this is true. I mean, they have a mission tree, but it is utterly generic. It looks like there might want to be something over here, but there isn't. Maybe this is unlocked later. No, that would be in there. I don't. Seems unlikely. Let's quickly become something else. Let's become, say, Emperors. No, same difference. Not sure. Not sure why this is what it is. Let's go back to our Patchnotes here. So a bunch of mission trees, even though we couldn't find some of them. Revolution has had a lot of changes. We're not going to have a big look into that here, but it should play quite differently now. You can even force people to join the revolution in peace deals, which is funky. Provoke rebels revolting immediately with extra strength. Okay, so there's a different mechanic for revolutionary countries now. It's called revolutionary zeal instead of absolutism. That also gives bonuses if you have more of it. So it's kind of similar in that regard. Obviously the details are going to be different. Bunch of government changes, bunch of incidents. That's what we saw, these Imperial incidents, King in Prussia, decline of the Hanseatic League, question of Holstein, and so on. Peace treaty to spread the revolution there. 21 new missions for Lübeck. Well, let's have a look at Lübeck, why don't we? Get back to the game. Become Lübeck. HSA. Obviously. I mean, this is 21 missions, admittedly, but most of these are generic ones. And this down here, related to the Emperor, Center of Commerce, Reform the Administration, this is a specific one for Lübeck, and then ending the Sound Toll. Would this remove the Sound Toll? Yeah. Oh no, you have to remove the Sound Toll so you finish the mission. I don't know how you do that, but that's interesting. So there's a province modifier somewhere up here in Denmark. Does it say? In Sjælland. That is super strong on trade, the Sound Toll. But I don't know how you end that. Maybe you take Sjælland from them. Who knows? Back to the patch notes. Bunch of new Saxon missions, although we've seen for now that new missions doesn't mean actually new missions necessarily. But you can see there's a lot of change, and even if there's only a few new missions, I think that's gonna make gameplay more diverse, and that's cool. Bavarian mission tree, 50 new missions. Let's become Bavaria. Let's have a look at one more mission tree, and that's gonna be that. I'm not a big fan of Bavaria, but Bavaria... Oh, Bavaria doesn't exist at the start of the game, eh? But Munich does. Interesting. I'm very interested in seeing how the new HRE plays out, because there have been so many changes, new provinces, new things. The fact that Bavaria doesn't exist, that's not always been the case, right? I'm not crazy here. Bavaria usually exists. Yeah, from Bavaria, there it is. So Let's have a quick look, Bavarian Missions, and we can see that even though we found Bavaria, we have the same mission tree as we had in Munich. Unite Strong Bavaria, Expand Bavaria, Conquer Franconia. So a bunch of conquer stuff around, well, southern Germany, and then a whole bunch of generic missions. So when it says in the patch notes that that there's 15 new missions, it means, does it say 15? Either way, it doesn't actually refer to that many new missions. It will also include generic existing missions. We can see, and there's Charlemagne's Legacy again, so that's not unique to anyone anyway. All right, back to those patch notes. Several 18th century events, Hungarian mission tree, Milanese mission tree, tons and tons and tons of mission trees. So, if you get nothing else out of the expansion, if you don't care about Catholic mechanics, you don't care about change and defend of the faith, or hegemony, we haven't talked about hegemony at all, let's have a quick look at that in a minute, or revolutions, you still get tons and tons and tons of extra mission trees, which, you know, it's good. I like it. It makes countries play differently, and that's always good. Also, these missions give you some sort of guideline when playing a country. So, especially if you're not going for a specific achievement, it can be very nice to just have a mission tree to sort of follow when you're playing. Because playing EU4 without goals is not that great. All right, let's have a quick look at hegemony. Let's go back to the game. Let's quickly become a great power by, say, being Castile again. Tag over to Castile. And have a look at hegemony. Now that is in the great power screen, if I remember correctly. Yep. So down here we have our usual great power screen, but there are 3 buttons here for hegemons. A economic hegemon, a naval hegemon, and a military hegemon. And you can only become one of these if you are a great power and fulfill certain requirements. Like in this case, having an income of at least 1,000 ducats a month, and other great powers having less. So we have to have the most income of all the great powers, and it has to be over 1,000. We can click this button, become the hegemon, and we get benefits: war exhaustion reduction, foreign spy detection, additional manpower, the mercenary manpower in this case. And by staying the hegemon, you get growing powers. So the longer you are a hegemon, the more you get out of it. More goods produced in this case, mercenary discipline, and reduced autonomy in territories, which is quite a huge. 20% is quite a bit. Also, gaining governing capacity, another change that's to the base game, which we're going to see in a minute. Similarly, the naval hegemon gives you naval bonuses and artillery damage from the back row, 20% extra, that's quite good. And the military one gives you siege ability, which I love, unrest reduction, which is cool, war exhaustion reduction, province war score cost. These are very, very powerful. Now, only one country can ever be a specific hegemon, and they cannot be allied to another hegemon. Now, I don't know that you can only be one type of hegemon. I think you can have all of these proclaimed, I believe. Still, that could be an interesting battle. It's a pretty late game thing. It's going to clash the big powers against each other, which is kind of cool. Maybe break up some big alliances, which could be very cool, although those don't tend to happen super often. I mean, you might get like France and Castile, but that's more early game, and these are not early game things. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. But it's definitely nice to have more of such features in the game, just to mix things up. Now, what else did I miss in this list? Hegemons. There are tiers of Defender of Faith, depending on the strength of the faith. Yes. So I don't know if we can see that already. I mean, it's Castile. Oh, I am. No, I can't claim it because I don't have the money. But we could still claim Defender of the Faith as usual, giving a whole bunch of buffs. Notably, no longer reduces tech cost or increases tech cost. So it's just positive to be Defender of the Faith, except for the whole thing where you have to, defend the faith, which can be a problem. And these tiers, so the more nations follow your religion, the better being Defender of the Faith will be. And these bonuses we see here are the ones we get from being the maximum level Defender of the Faith, tier 5, which is very powerful but obviously not trivial to get, especially if you're not Catholic. Then things are going to be, yeah, a bit different there, won't they? All right, back to our patch notes. I think we've hit most of the main things from the actual expansion, but there's the free patch, and that's a lot. So Paradox very cleverly has made the move to including most of the game features not in paid for expansions, but in free patches, and then adding the content to those in the expansions. That way you don't rely on having game features gated behind expansions and splitting up your player base and or removing the ability that you have to later come back to those features. Estates were such a feature where it was introduced in a expansion, and therefore they couldn't really do more estates in further expansions because you needed the previous expansion to have it, and it was complicated. So they moved it to the base game, and nowadays they have features. So baseline gameplay mechanics mostly in the free patch. We saw Hegemony, for example, which was not, but mostly still. So first one here, and that's a big one, reworked Mercenary System. So if we jump back into our game here and we try to hire some mercenaries, let me turn off the console. We can see, well, first off, there's 3 tabs in the macro builder for land units now. One for normal regiments, although there's this Marines thing here, which we also need to talk about. Then there's Mercenary Companies, and you no longer just recruit mercenary units like individual infantry or, heaven forbid, artillery pieces, but instead you recruit whole companies, more like you do in, say, Crusader Kings or Imperator. So I could spend 55.36 ducats here, plus a maintenance of 1.67 ducats a month to hire the free company, which is local, so I can buy it my own territory. It's just 6 infantrymen, and they have their own manpower pool. So no longer do mercenaries just freely, well, you pay for it, but otherwise freely reinforce, but they have their own manpower pool that does recover over time, but when it's empty, and they will no longer recover. On the other hand, it's a lot cheaper to hire mercenaries now. This is, 55 ducats for 6 mercenaries. If I were to buy 6 Latin medieval infantry, I would already be paying 60 ducats. And this is a maintenance of 0.21 a month. So 6 of those would be like 1.2. So slightly higher maintenance, but reduced cost. Although in this case, there are a couple of modifiers why this is so cheap. So they would cost 107, so they would be more expensive than normal units. But the free company, so that's just a modifier for this specific mercenary company, they are just 25% cheaper to get. Because we're a lucky nation, we get 20% off, and because we have professionalism, they're cheaper. So it's interesting to see all these mechanics interacting with that. And then other ones, you see these ones are 10% more expensive because they're the free Miquelets. And these guys have an origin. They come from Urgel. And I don't remember where Urgel is. Urgel. Okay, it's not that far away. But I believe if I hire these guys, do I have to click? What do I have to do? I've not done this before. How do I hire you? Okay, they are hired here. I don't quite know what the distance does for me. Maybe it changes the time it takes for them to be hired or something? House of Lancaster, yeah, whatever. I just want to see things. And now I'm out of money to buy more of these. You know what? I'm just gonna... Yeah, I could cheat into money. That doesn't just become France. And have a look at them. Who are at war because, England is the thing. But we can have a look. And not have any money either. Fine. But you see there are different mercenary companies. They had different compositions. Right now they're mostly infantry, but I assume that's going to change over time. They need to be somewhat local, so I can't just have somebody hired from way elsewhere, right? These are mostly French and close to France, Italian. And if I say I became Muscovy, and then we had another look at our mercenary companies, we see different ones from Novgorod, from Zaporozhye, etc. So depending on where you are, these are it changes which companies you can hire and which ones are available. Now, I do believe these are available to every country individually. I don't think you hire them from somebody else. So it's not like Novgorod could hire the Novgorod company and I would not be able to access it. I don't think that's how the game works. Yeah. So that's the big change to mercenary companies. Obviously, there's more, especially where the cost and the balance is involved, but that's the big change. Estates, yes, let's have a look at estates. Let's do it while we're Muscovy, why not? Go back to the game. Estates have changed almost completely. You can already see the estates screen is, it does look a bit different, doesn't it, than it looked before. Now, we still have, if we look at the clergy here, we still have loyalty, and high loyalty still gives bonuses, and we still have influence, and going over 100 influence is still a problem, and they still give us bonuses depending on how loyal and influential they are. But I can no longer just milk my estates. Instead, I can give them privileges. I already have 2 enacted here. The Clergy Advisory Council, which does it do? It increases stability cost while having it on, but it reduces admin advisor cost by 25%. It also reduces maximum absolutism when enacted. It increases clergy influence, and it increases their loyalty equilibrium. So normally, pre-Emperor or pre-patch 1.30, loyalty would always drift towards 50%. Now that is actually a flexible number, this equilibrium, and it can drift to something else, like in our case here right now, to 52.9%. And then I could add more privileges here, gaining loyalty and influence, losing crown land, which we're going to have to talk about, and once again, most of these hurt absolutism. And then they do something, or in some cases, nothing additional. But most of these have additional effects, which is why you would do them. And I think one of them is always gain monarch points. So you can no longer just ask them for a bunch of monarch points, but you can give them a, what are these things called? A privilege that gives you monthly power at the cost of things. Main cost here is going to be crown land. And no longer do estates have their own territory, not as in provinces on the map. Instead, they have a percentage of the available crown land. You can see that over here, our land that we have in our country is split. About 30% are still controlled by me, and then it's split among the 4 estates that we have as Muscovy here. And depending on how much land they control, they're going to be more loyal and more influential. And you, if you don't have enough land, then you get negative modifiers. And I think you do get positive ones if you have more land. So in our case here, we only have 29% control, or 30 I guess, which costs us 10% national tax, 10% max absolutism, and adds 25% liberty desire to subjects. We can sell crown land and give it to our estates, sort of evenly split among the split that they already have. So the more land they already have, the more land they get. Although this doesn't seem to be directly mathematical. We see here that the Cossacks get as much as the Boyars, even though they only have half of their estate land right now. It might be influence. Let's have a quick look. Cossacks, influence, no. No, I don't quite know how it's split. We see, maybe that's in the patch notes, maybe not. So we could sell some land for money here and make them more loyal. We could seize land, technically, if we were at peace, which takes land away from them proportionally, 5% only, and costs us a bunch of loyalty. And we can summon the Diet, which I'm just going to do here, which gives influence and loyalty to all the states, but also gives us this event here. We can choose one of the proposals, the clergy, burghers, or Cossacks in this case. Boyars don't have a proposal for us this time, which are sort of tasks to complete. So if we do what the Cossacks want here, we gain 10 loyalty on them and we gain manpower. What we need to do for it is to have base manpower in the province of Kasimov of 7. So we need to develop Kasimov a bit, and then they'll be happy and give me stuff. If I don't manage that within 20 years' time, I will get unrest and lose loyalty. Equilibrium on the Cossacks. No. I don't think that date is actually correct there. But hey. So we'd have to do that, and then we gain things. And then these other ones have other options. I'm just going to take the proposal of the clergy and not care about it. So there's our agenda that we now have to fulfill. I think that's the major change to the estates. So no longer individual buttons, but these privileges. No longer individual land, but crown land with bonuses and, well, maluses, I guess. Back to our patch notes. And these are just so chunky. Remove corruption from territories and made a whole new government capacity mechanic. States, territorial cores, and territories have different weights on this. Governing capacity. So, governing capacity down here. There's no state limit anymore. I can have as many states as I want. But I have a governing capacity that depends on various things. Partially my government rank, it's going to be technology, and maybe government reforms too. And this is how much land I can control without getting negative effects from it. If I go over the limit, I start having negative effects. And states are the most expensive, territorial cores are less expensive, territories are even less expensive, but also they give you less stuff. So this is a soft limit on expansion that is different from the original max state thing. And I assume we're going to see in technology, instead of the maximum state value from admin, we now gain governing capacity as admin technology grows. So blobbing real quick might be a bit harder. Maybe not though, we'll see. Obviously depends on the balance that we have here. But that's going to be probably a big change to how the game plays out. Expand administration mechanic lets you spend government reform progress for increased government capacity. So instead of choosing new tiers in my government reform here, I can spend 20 government progress, in this case, to gain 20 capacity and increase the cost of pressing that button again by 20%. So the more you do this, the more expensive it's going to become to increase your capacity. But that gives you a way to go around that limit or expand that limit. Also, it gives you stuff to do with your government reform points once you're done doing your reforms, which has happened to us in our campaigns a bit. So that's nice. Indication of who've used your rival when picking a rival. Let's have a quick look if we can see a rival screen somewhere. I assume the AI has already picked all their rivals. I'm at war. Let's become, I don't know, Poland. That's the disadvantage of having time run out here. Ooh, foreign air. It's a new icon at least for that. I think the warning has always been there, right? Let's see. We have full rivals. I need somebody who doesn't have full rivals and is not at war. Just gonna right-click my way through a couple of countries. The AI is way too good at picking rivals. No possible rivals. Really? Okay, we're gonna have to have a look at that. I mean, it's lucky that Fazan here has no other possible rivals, but I'm gonna have a quick look. Tag FZA. Let's see if we can choose a rival. No. Anyway, we're gonna see that once we play the game a bit more. They have changed the rival screen a bit, and it was very not helpful before. So maybe it's more helpful now. It would still like if it explained on why you could choose rivals. That would be excellent, but I don't think that they did that. Change countries. So there's this endgame tag mechanic they added a couple of patches ago, where if you form certain tags, you can't then reform into another tag. Like if you're from Germany, you can't then become Ming because you already have an endgame tag. You can turn that off, but then you can't get any achievements. And that's what this means. Free cities in the base game, we talked about this. Form mechanics, again, this idea of having base mechanics in the base game and then having the content for them in the expansions. So government reforms are now baseline, but Dharma and Emperor do add a bunch of unique reforms. They did change a bunch of things about disasters. I'm not 100% sure what exactly they did. We're going to see that when we see it. a bunch of new missions for a bunch of people. And we have another block of this here because this is free patch content, so you don't need the expansion to have it. More flavor, tons of events, event chains. Unfortunately, these things, they do all look the same. Added event, added something, but like added estate privileges to the game. And we talked about this before, but that's a much bigger change than anything else there. So we're gonna have to scan this a bit more carefully. Event chains, added Marines type of infantry. So I don't think we need to jump deep into the game here. But let's have a quick look anyway. We already saw the ability to recruit Marines. And if I become Castile again, and then scroll over there, and get into my macro builder, I can not only hire infantry and cavalry, but also Marines. Marines use sailors as a resource instead of manpower, which is interesting. You don't have tons of sailors usually, so you can't have a giant chunk of Marines. Also, you're limited by a 5% force limit cap, apparently. So we can only have one right now. These guys, it doesn't say here, which is unfortunate, but they mostly disembark much quicker, and they don't take penalties for crossing straits or landing from a boat. But I think they take more shock damage, something like this. So they're weaker at normal combat, but they're much better at attacking from sea or over straits and all that. And that scales with the amount of Marines you have in your army. So if you have 50% Marines and 50% non-Marines, you only get half the crossing penalty. So I'm interested to see how that turns out. Maybe it's gonna make sailors more interesting at some point. The fact that they're weaker in normal combat, yeah, it might mean that you don't use them that much. We'll see. But I can certainly see special situations where you'd want them. But I don't think that I'll generally have a force of Marines just sitting around to do my bidding. That seems unlikely. Especially with all the restriction of having to use sailors and having a 5% cap. Although there might be things that change the amount of Marines you can have. While I'm here, because I'm just noticing it, this is just excellent. There is now a states tab to the macro builder, which not only allows you to just core all stuff and state and destate and sort by income and size and development. So instead of having going to the ledger and then back to the state and all that, you can just do it all here. It also has a state edicts tab. You can just turn on and off edicts. You can see which edicts you still have on. This is lovely. And I do believe it's in the free game, in the free patch. At least I didn't see it as part of the Emperor notes, so yeah. Enjoy. Marines type of infantry, custom nation setup, sprite packs. Yeah, there's the state macro builder as a free element. Go to button in events, and war tax is now a toggle that costs 2 mil points a month if you're at war. So before you had to turn on war taxes for 50 mil, it would be on for 2 years, no matter whether you're at war or not. So if you made peace, then it would still kind of cost you those mil points. You wouldn't get the benefits anymore, but you would still have paid for it. So it's a lot. You pay for what you're getting, is what I'm trying to say here. You get a reduction every month when you're at war, and you pay the 2 mil every month while you're at war. I still don't know that I want to pay mil for money in most cases, but I think that makes it at least more usable. Game balance. Now there are a bunch of new manufacturing buildings that have flat effects, which is interesting because before manufacturers were only something you wanted to build in provinces that were high development, specific type. Now that's not necessarily true anymore. They've changed experimental minorities a bit. It doesn't cost dip anymore, but it also isn't as powerful anymore. Trade companies have been changed a bit. They've been weakened, but the buildings have been made cheaper and better, so to try and balance that out. No more cap on government reform progress. Okay, that's fine. But I'm gonna skip on the smaller changes here. Base conversion lowered to 2 from 5. I assume that means that Centers of Reformation are gonna work much slower now. They've tried to improve drill a lot. So if you have 100% professionalism, you're gonna have 50% less drill loss. So drill was pretty irrelevant before because you were well, would only be there for the first couple of engagements, or maybe the first engagement in a war, and then you'd have lost all the drill already. Now there are a bunch of modifiers that can reduce drill loss, which is nice. They improved the effect from drill. You can now have up to minus 25% reduced shock and fire damage taken. And the yearly drill decay, so the just normal decay, was also reduced. Ship combat has been changed a bit. There's sort of a chance to disengage for ships. They also, I think they can all fire. No, all engaged ships will fire. I don't quite know what that means, but I'm gonna have a look at ship combat when we have it in a campaign to see how exactly that plays out. But it seemed like interesting enough changes. And ship combat has not been great before, so that's nice. 50% more expensive to make claims in the HRE. Don't know if I love that. And then a whole bunch of miscellaneous changes, which, you know, I don't think we need to all talk about. Admin efficiency kept at 90%. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I didn't even know you could have over 90% admin efficiency. Bunch of changes to the interface. One is that you can finally just say in the peace deal, hey, give me as much money as you're willing to give me, instead of to fine-tune that thing to find it. Core all button, boost state button. I don't know what boost state does, but I'm interested to find out. Military access map mode, that could be very useful. I'm interested in that and how well it works out. We can have a quick look, right? Let's jump into, whoops. As I screw up my recording here, there we go. Jump in there, let's have a look at, well, where would the military access map mode be? Diplomatic? I suppose. Military access. So as Castile, I have no military access. I read from this. France. Okay. So I can click on the country and I can see what kind of military access they have. That's very nice. So this is all conditional access. And this is just granted access. Yeah. That's nice and simple and good. You just want to see whether people can reach you or not. Instead of having to go through stuff, you just click somebody, you see, okay, conditional access. And that's groovy. Yeah. Like it a lot. And it's a simple change, right? But it's good. I like it. And a bunch more changes to other map modes that are fine. Better tooltips, always a good thing. And then other. Mates, the anti-coalition macro builder. Anti-coalition macro builder. What? What? Oh, that must just be the outraged countries one, right? Yeah, must be this one here. Incentive alerts to improve with outraged countries. Anti-coalition macro builder. Interesting. A bit smarter. I mean, it was pretty dumb before. So, maybe a bit smarter is already a lot. It's quite possible. Text clipping, color of discipline, bunch of modding, logging, triggers, stuff that we don't super care about. And then script is content. I don't know why it's script, but that's mostly about events and starting setup. Events. Ideas. Purged almost every single HCC throws from ideas. HCC. I don't know what that is. Initial ideas for Normandy, alright. And changes to a bunch of individual ideas. Initial ideas, Brunswick, Lüneburg, Mainz, Trier. Tons of German and Italian places got their own ideas. Tons of changes. More German ideas. Excellent. I support everything that makes countries play out differently. More mission changes. Government reforms for merchant republics. That's the startup. Leader names, and then tons of bug fixes, which I'm gonna be happy to see once I'm in game and that the bugs don't happen. But we're not gonna go through. Inconsistent truce timers fixed. Now that's a nice one, because early on you would have truce times. It would say truce ends until this, and then a month early the truce would end, and you would not be prepared, or truce would not have ended when you expected it to, and all that. I do like that they fixed that, and I'm gonna go and read through all of these at some point, but that's too much. We're already way too deep into this video. I'm gonna cut it a bit, but still it's gonna be about an hour, which has to be enough. Forming Iceland should no longer cause an error. No, it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. Well, that's, I guess, the long of it. If you have anything specific you want me to go into more deeper detail, if you want me to check out, especially while the game is not officially out yet, there are going to be a few days in which I have the ability to respond to your questions. So if you saw something in the patch notes or something I just brushed over here and you want to see in deeper detail, then do let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, we're going to start a campaign right now. I'm going to start recording a campaign right after doing this video. And as I said, there might be 2 campaigns because I have some time at my hands right now. So I might actually be doing 2 videos a day, 2 different campaigns. I think one of the campaigns is going to be Mulhouse, for everything's coming up Mulhouse. And then for all the HRE and Catholic and all that interactions. Then the other one, don't know. I might try myself at the Isles achievement, which I don't know if I can do. Definitely not in the first try, but I definitely don't know whether I can do it in the first try. So what I'm trying to say, I'll have to experiment with it a bit, but I think that's also very interesting. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please do check out those new campaigns when they come up. And while you're busy, well, you're not busy and waiting for that, why not check out all my other campaigns? The playlist for all of them. Just check them out in my account. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.